Hi everyone, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. If you're watching it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the show, make sure to subscribe so that you get notified when a new show is released. And if you'd like to find links to videos or MP3 files, just go to miamighostchronicles.com, and you can also submit any eerie experiences you've had at the Submit Your Story tab. Also, hook up with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, where you can find information not only about new shows, but also about monthly free merchandise giveaways. So, get comfortable, enjoy this new episode, and just imagine it's a dark and stormy night where not a creature is stirring, not even a mouse. And if a creature is stirring, you hope it's a mouse. Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How is everybody doing today? Good, I hope. Well, today I have a most interesting guest, and that's just an understatement. Let me give you a brief introduction, and then we'll bring him on like I always do. But who I have with us tonight is Mr. John Eagan. Now, John was born in New York to a Catholic family. Now, later on they moved to New Jersey. He's married, family man, teacher, while bartending on the side. And while working in that bar, he interviewed hundreds of ladies while he was working on the basis for his 1993 how-to book titled How to Pick Up Beautiful Women in Nightclubs and Any Other Place, Secrets Every Man Should Know. We're going to ask him about that, paranormal or not. And he appeared on talk shows and everything. But, and of course, you know, part of I imagine that how-to book was, of course, looking for love in all the wrong places. And in the interim, which I'm sure he's going to explain to us, he, of course, came across a lot of people that obviously they had lost their way. And he prayed for them. And he believes that this is why he caught the attention of an entity from hell who specializes in perverting humans. He thinks that, you know, like I think a lot of other people, that right now we're changing into something dangerous. And he's written a new book called Between Love and Hate, The Devil is Real. And of course, part of the book is he's going to describe the details of experiences that he had in his own home, poltergeist experiences that were witnessed not only by himself but his wife and his son, and how it culminated in the actual appearance of a demon surrounded by blue flames. This I cannot wait to hear this story. But let's start at the beginning, and let me bring John on. How are you doing today, John?
Hi, Marlene. How are you today?
Absolutely.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here.
No, on the contrary, it is totally my pleasure. And I'm going to ask you, even though, you know, in your bio, it kind of talks about how, you know, back in 93, maybe you weren't thinking of this, but prior to that, did you ever have any paranormal experiences in childhood or anything, or what happened? How did that come about?
Well, actually, no. I never really had one. The only time I ever heard of an actual experience that I could believe was when, like, we have this blood disease that runs in my family, and my father had it, and he died early from a heart attack.
Okay.
And my brother was unlucky to get that. So he was having a heart attack, and he called 911. He went to the hospital. Little beknownst to me until I found out that night when I came to visit him. On the hospital bed, he had a full-blown heart attack, and he died there. And he left his body. That's what he told me afterwards. And he said, Johnny, you know, I left my body. I saw the doctors and the nurses frantically trying to get me back to life again with the alarms going off and the defibrillators. And he said, I was watching all of this. And in the meantime, in one area of the hospital room, he said there was a very dark area there where he was, and demons came for him. And I started grabbing him and pulling him into that dark corner of the room. And finally, the doctors got him back to life, and he was able to enter his body. And he kept asking me, Johnny, why did demons come for me? And I said, I don't really have an explanation for that. But that was really the only other time, other than the one I had, that's something like this actually happened that I believed in. And now it's impacted me a lot, you know. But every time I hear of an encounter that a person has with a ghost or an angel or a demon, you know, I wonder about that person a little bit. You know, I'm a bit skeptical myself. I wonder if they're a legitimate person, Are they a little crazy? Are they doing this for attention? That's why I want to give you a brief history about my life and who I am. By this apparition I had, a small veil was lifted for a moment in time where I was able to peer in through a dimension unseen by most people. I could actually see through a threshold into a paranormal realm. And we're all going to be faced with this dimension someday, that fifth dimension, that spiritual dimension. No matter what you do, no matter how you live, no matter where you live, in the end, we're all going to be standing on the precipice of that event horizon of that fifth spiritual dimension. And I'm not just talking to you, Marlene, or a couple of your listeners. Everybody out there is going to be thrust into this abyss.
Yeah, at some point, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and we're all going to die, and there's going to be forces there. But I used to think for some, but now I believe for many, evil forces they're going to have to contend with. So tonight, we're going to get an understanding of those evil forces and how they will try to manipulate you in that paranormal realm of that fifth dimension. And a lot of people say to me, what is the fifth dimension? What's the fourth dimension? Well, we live in the fourth dimension. We're born in the fourth dimension. There's length, width, height, time. That's our fourth dimension. That's our universe. That's our everyday world. Our physical bodies are born here. We're going to die here, and we're going to stay here after we die. The physical bodies. There's no time as we know it in that fifth dimension. I mean, God started the clock when he started this universe. The Earth, the moon goes around the Earth 30 days. The Earth rotates on its axis every 24 hours. The Earth goes around the sun 364 days a year. There's none of that in the next dimension. There's no need for time in that next dimension. Only us spirits will pass through that dimension. And we're going to discuss that and how this creature entered this house and possessed us. And I think your listeners will be enlightened a lot on a deep level, more than they could possibly imagine right now. And it's quite frightening, so be prepared. Okay. This apparition I had is the antithesis of any apparition I've ever heard or read about. So we're going to go from the ordinary world into the extraordinary world. I mean, just think about it, Marlene. How many times in the course of history does an entity break through a dimension to deliver a message? I mean, I could probably count it on my right hand alone. When people read the Bible, there's occurrences where angels have brought messages to people. There's not that much about devils delivering messages to people. And there's plenty of stories about ghosts scaring people, ghosts haunting houses. Yeah, we've all heard so many stories about ghosts. But tonight, I ask your listeners to be open-minded, be ready. You may not sleep that well tonight. You may even have bad dreams.
Well, you know what? It is what it is because sometimes, and that's why I say, people when they go see these horror movies and everything and they get all really scared, but at the end of the day, you're thinking, okay, the movie's over, I'm going to go home, and it's all make-believe. And sometimes it's not as make-believe as people would like to think.
Oh, this is definitely not make-believe. I mean, it's terrifying. It's jarring. This is the only book ever written that will take you as close as humanly possible right into the devil's realm. It's a little frightening, that I can guarantee. And Molly, I'm not a crazy person. I'm not looking for attention. I was given a few talents in my life that got me a lot of attention. Like I'm a best-selling author. I hope we have time to talk about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm an artist whose work has been seen throughout the world. And hopefully we'll have time to talk about that. I only bring up that fact that I'm an artist because I have the ability to draw and paint and sculpt exactly what I see, right down to every detail.
Okay.
So to have a visual of this malevolent apparition, what it looked like, and it appeared to me in my house, you can go to John-Eagan, EAGAN.com.
Okay.
John-Eagan, EAGAN.com, and see the cover of the book. That's exactly what I was confronted with. And it helps to have a visual. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, So I just want to give you a fast history about who I am, where I come from. I was born in Brooklyn, like you said. I went to an all-male parochial school, a school where Franciscan brothers were in charge. Every single thing was regimented. Before school, we played in a fenced-in schoolyard where the Franciscan brother would blow the whistle. Everybody had to stop cold. If you were playing basketball, the ball would just keep bouncing. That's the only thing you could hear. And if you moved to try to grab the basketball, and the Franciscan brother saw you, he's going to beat you. And if your mom finds out when you get home, your mom is going to beat you. So you couldn't win. You just got online. You marched into school like good soldiers. I don't know how my parents did it back then, Marlene. I mean, there were 6 of us kids. We all went to parochial school. They didn't have any money. My dad was a truck driver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but you know what? I'll be honest with you. Back then, a lot of the parochial schools, they were more affordable because I think back then also they were more interested in religious instruction for, their parish.
Yeah.
But nowadays, no, it is. But still, it was, you could. I'm sure they had the choice of sending you to public school, right?
I'm sure they did, but that wasn't the agenda for them back then, you
Right,
know. And
exactly.
then, and the things were different. I mean, what are you going to do? I used to cut out pieces of cardboard to put them in where the holes in my shoes were. You know, that's how things were back then. And you just accepted it. The only one
Right.
that didn't really, one of my sisters, she hated being poor. She used to run away all the time as a little girl, and I joke at her kids. I joke at her kids today about it, and I tell them, your mom used to run away so much back in the day that at night we didn't go up there to read her a bedtime story. We used to read her the bus schedule, so she know where to go, so she know where she was going. But then your parents stayed together. You knew that. The whole community would go to church on Sunday. That's where you learn how to act like a moral human being. That's where you got your foundation. It basically stuck with you your whole life, The
Yes.
churches were full back then. I
Oh,
mean, you
yeah.
had to get there early just to get a seat. I mean, they even made baby rooms in the back of the church. That's where a mother could go if the baby was crying. And it's like a soundproof room. It had a glass window on the front, and they wouldn't disturb anybody. But now, according to studies today, 70% of the people from my religion have dropped out of all of that today,
Let me tell you,
going to church.
I went to Catholic school for 12 years, and I tell everybody when I was going, that we used to have beanies as girls, and you would sweat bullets if you forgot your beanie because you had to go into church with your head covered.
Yeah,
You're a
that's
girl.
right. Absolutely.
Yes.
I went to,
I know
one
what
side
that's
was all
like.
boys. Yeah, that's amazing. One side was all boys, and the other side was all girls. That's where my sisters went. But today, everybody, they lost their fervor. The lines between good and evil are blurred today. But you have to be vigilant about counterfeit teachings. I mean, these creatures, these demons, are constantly building a trapdoor of deceit designed for us to fall. They don't want us in churches and synagogues, and we're not going there anymore today. I mean, just to give an example how cunning people can be, because we're going to discuss how intelligent and cunning this creature was that came here. I had two nephews. They were brought up in their religion. They had got college degrees. They went to work in the city of New York. They met clever people who persuaded them that God doesn't exist. They're so cunning to convince two educated men
Right.
to lose their faith in God. And it's such a shame. And I have other family members, nephews and nieces, who are now heroin addicts. I mean,
Oh my
cunning
God.
people have come into their life and persuaded them that heroin was a good thing to do. And now their life is like destroyed. They're in and out of rehab. They're addicts, and their young life has been destroyed. And every day is a fight for them. So I mean, I also have extended family members who lost their compassion for people. That my wife goes around to some of the hospitals around here and some of the homes where these poor people are, like with terrible MS. And she brings them clothes and feeds them some food. And sometimes she gets them to come over here. Had to come here in a wheelchair, so they had to get the transportation that they have there. And we try to make a day for them. And one of my extended relatives was listening and said, those people are better off dead. And I was thinking, who came? What clever person has come and taken her compassion for people away? But there's people who can do that. So I want you just to remember that. So when we start to talk about this malevolent apparition that came into this house, it was so much more intelligent, what it could do to us in that next dimension, that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and what it did while it was here. But anyway, it was a different world back then. When all us kids played outside, rain or shine, winter or summer, we played stickball in the middle of times have changed so much. I did a study 20 years ago, and they asked people, how many intimate friends do you have that you can go to with your problems and you can feel secure with? And the answer was 3. And they did that same study today, just 20 years later. There's Facebook, Snapchat, LinkedIn, so many different apps. People have hundreds of friends, we would think. And when they did that study today about how many intimate friends they have, it's down to 1.5 now. And
I believe it. The trust factor is gone.
It's gone. So technology has given us global communication nowadays and thousands of friends, but I mean, it's half of what it was 20 years ago. I mean, just think how things have changed exponentially in a short period of time. In the past, we used to fear snakes and spiders and hives, but nowadays, with our new technology and our global connection, the biggest fears of the millenniums today: low Wi-Fi, that buffering circle you see on your phone or your computer, and low battery life.
It's like, oh my God, I don't have a signal.
That's their biggest problem. I mean, nobody's worrying about cutting out cardboard to fill the holes in their shoes anymore.
No.
That's not happening today.
No.
But I mean, I love technology, Marlene.
Right. No, absolutely. Technology is wonderful, but like all things in extreme, I think it's done a big disservice to us humans.
I know. Well. The evil one is in there. I mean, it amplifies certain wicked things, like pornography is a multi-billion-dollar industry today. Because sex trafficking, a multi-billion-dollar industry today. I mean, suicide among boys have doubled and tripled among girls today. 1 million people will commit suicide this year. I mean, this technology, I think it's like...
I believe that loneliness was one of the reasons cited for that uptick in suicides.
Yeah, loneliness. Where's these hundreds of friends everybody has on all these apps? And you're so lonely.
Exactly.
I mean, it's working against us like a neutron bomb. You know, when a neutron bomb explodes, it doesn't make a big explosion. The neutrons penetrate the buildings, armor, underground bunkers, and kills everything from the inside. Oh, the buildings are all left standing. No damage whatsoever. And as I believe now, that's how these demons like it. Destruction in any form to any human. And that's part of the trapdoor deceit that we're going to talk about later, you know. So real quick, my dad moves us all to New Jersey. We're still like kids. I go to the college in New Jersey. That's where I get my degrees. I started my career as a special ed teacher.
Okay.
That's where I felt this is sort of like the prerequisite of why this thing came in. These two things that I did as a special ed teacher and a bartender. As a special ed teacher, I worked with kids that didn't have any qualities, attributes, characteristics that normal kids have. So I felt like just being normal, I was blessed. So I wanted to pay back for just being normal, and I started a really prayer life then. I prayed every single day for at least an hour. You know, and then as a special ed teacher, you got plenty of time on your hands because, I mean, they have a 2-hour lunch, and the teacher's aide, takes care of that. So I decided I knew how to bartend, so I started working at night as a bartender.
Okay.
So, yeah. So this is where I think a lot of the prerequisite happened, you know. As a bartender, I worked in nightclubs, and people who come out at night, they're looking for fun. Most of them are stand-up people, and they have a certain percentage of people who dealt on the darker side of things. And these people are a little bit wicked. They were looking for, of course, alcohol, but drugs and commit adultery, and anything they can get their hands on, you know.
Right.
And a good portion of them was atheists and into the occult. I mean, I can get Marlene. I can get along with anybody. And I didn't have a big problem with this at the time, but I did notice over the years that a lot of them died from accidents, overdoses, suicides, and cancers. And I felt that these people were out at night like ships without a rudder. Anywhere the tide would take, or the wind would blow them. It was fine with them. But they died in a state that nobody should die in, and I felt like helpless for these people. Okay. So just to give you a quick idea, I had a friend who was a bartender. His name was Chris, and he used to drink and smoke cigarettes 7 days a week, 7 nights a week. And he used to work right next to me, but he was an atheist. He used to make fun of God all the time. He used to make fun of Jesus all the time. He used to make fun of the Virgin Mary all the time. Then he didn't feel well one time, and he went to the doctor, and he found out he had 4th-stage cancer, you know.
Whoa.
And he couldn't work anymore, yeah. So I used to try to visit him between my jobs, because he was a friend. I mean, I knew him for a long time, but he looked like he was aging like 40 years in a matter of months. When you have that 4th-stage cancer, it just tears you up. And he died within a few months. And when I used to visit him, I used to try to talk about God, but he was so even more bitter about his diagnosis. So he died in such a terrible state, like a lost soul, and I felt helpless for him. He was like a friend of mine.
Right.
And I just felt helpless for him. So in my religion, and yours too, and we're told that people fall into hell like snowflakes fall from the sky, especially if there's no one to pray for them. So I started praying for these people that I knew who died, these lost souls I felt, and other friends that I had who died in these terrible states. And I used to ask God, don't send these souls to hell until I finish praying for them. No matter how long you give me on this planet, no matter how many grains of sand I got left in that hourglass. And I believe today that's the prerequisite of why this demon creature was compelled to possess this house. And we're going to build that mosaic for you piece by piece, right down to every detail. But before it gets too intense,
well, you know what? It's not the first time, John, that I've heard that do-gooders. When I mean do-gooders, I don't mean that in a disparaging way. On the contrary, somebody like you're getting in the way of maybe what was planned with those souls. Is what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely, and we're going to make that clear, especially when we're going to go through this apparition I had. But real quick, like you brought up the fact that I wrote a book, but the thing was I worked at night. I mean, I saw a problem, and the problem was that most men couldn't communicate with women, you know. So and every time a girl would come into the bar, all the guys would say, "Who is she? Should I buy her a drink? Should I ask her? Is she waiting for a boyfriend?" They would say, "Go talk to her for me." Like I had to break the ice with these guys. So,
you were the middleman.
yes, that was like, yeah. So and I realized these guys don't know how to communicate. A lot of times the guys would get up on their own, they'd go over and talk to the girl, and they would get shot down, and the girl would say to me, "Who's that creep?" or something even worse than that. And I would think to myself, I was just talking to you, and you sounded like okay, but all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, 2 minutes later, you're a creep now. So what did you say to her? You know, yeah, she's a lesbian, they would tell me. I was like, no, she's not. She's not a lesbian.
Like,
she won't talk to you. Yeah, right. So what I did, Marlene, was I started to interview women that came into the bars. I made a survey of the proper protocol, how to approach a woman, how to look, how to act, how to behave. What's turning you on when we're talking to you? What's turning you off when we're talking to you? How do you ask for that date? How do we look? How do we want us to smell? Everything, right down to every detail. And I wound up interviewing 2,000 women from the clubs that I worked in, from the malls, from the street, from the women's gyms. And I wrote this book. It's a 300-page book. It was all based on what women told me. And I did a lot of TV shows and stuff, and Men's Fitness Magazine, which is a respected national publication, called me and said, you know, we saw you doing the show. We want to test your book, and we're going to test some other books on the market to make these claims to see if this is for real or not. So I said, no problem. So I sent them the book. They send the guys out. They said, just do exactly what the book says. Don't do anything you think is right. So they write the article, Marlene. And they say that 80 to 90% of the women that they approach using the techniques that I taught them in this book, actually women taught me, they got a phone number and a date. Every other book was 0000. So then I started doing all those TV shows and everything. But I have a funny story if you real quick.
Yes,
we have time for.
Of course.
So I did all these shows, all the morning shows, all the afternoon, all the night shows, all the magazines and everything, all these interviews. But I'm right here in New Jersey, so I'm like close to New York. So I did all the Today in New York, Good Day in New York, Good Morning America, and all those morning shows, right? And if you're pretty good, they ask you to come back a few times. So I was there a lot. But this was like 20 years ago. So, but yeah, I don't know if you know a rapper named Chris Brown. He was going out with women, Rihanna back then. So he was just starting out too. So when you go into the city, you go into NBC or CBS, into their studio, you go through the security, you go upstairs to what they call the green room. That's where you have the coffee and the bagels, and you wait to be interviewed. And the producer comes in and says, okay, in about 5 minutes we're going to, So you're in there with a lot of celebrities, upcoming celebrities too, And Chris Brown was one of them. And Chris Brown, I used to see him once in a while. And I remember he didn't want anybody to interview him about the alleged he beat up Rihanna. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I remember
that. So you're in the green room, you're sitting on chairs in the green room. Somebody interviews him about her. And I'm home one time and I'm watching TV, and every single radio show, he took the chairs that were in the green room, and he had to Google this, and took it and threw it right through the plate glass window right out into Times Square or Rockefeller Center. I'm not sure exactly.
A little upset?
I said, yeah, a little upset. And I said to my wife, look at this guy, he's a genius. Look at all this free publicity he's getting. I never thought this, when I'm in the green room, to take the chair I'm sitting on and throw it out through the plate glass window right out to Times Square.
Yeah, you're like, okay.
Yeah. So amazing how this guy got his publicity, but he's still around today, so good for him. I don't know.
Well, what is it that they say? It's good publicity, bad publicity, as long as it's publicity, right?
There's no bad publicity. I'm convinced of that now.
Yeah, it's like, unfortunately, a lot of stars buy into that. Like, hey, there's nothing worse than being forgotten.
That's right. There's nothing worse than being forgotten. That is true. So anyway, that's what I did, and it turned out to be fine to me. But the thing was, I did the Howard Stern show. I did so many shows, Back then, they kind of they fight over you to do their show first. Like if you I think Imus wanted me to do their show first, and Imus has like 3,000 listeners. Howard Stern had 14 million listeners, right in my target audience. So they were like, if you do the Howard Stern show first, we're not going to interview you. I was like, I'm doing the Howard Stern show first. You got 3 million.
Sorry.
What do I care? Yeah. So anyway, I did shows like that. But so the book sold so well, I was able. I love working with those special ed kids, But the book did so well, so I stopped. I retired, I retired early. I stopped. I love working at night, but I stopped that too, and I miss it a lot. So everything is going fine for me. I'm retired. I have a nice prayer life, and Marlene, everything seems fine until until one day, about a year and about 3 or 4 months ago. If you want to get started listening to that.
Okay.
You do?
I want to hear everything. Everything.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm retired. Oh, so I should describe this house. Let me describe this house for you so you can understand what happened here. So I live in New Jersey, right on the border of Colts Neck. I live on an acre of property. The house is about 150 feet from the street, and the driveway is about 150, 160 feet long. You pulled into the driveway, and you had to make a left to get into the house. The house is built on the hill, so the garages are under the house.
Okay.
So you pull into the garage, close the garage door, and there's a metal door between the garage and the basement. So you have to go through that metal door, and then there's steps to your right that go up the steps to the kitchen. That's how we mostly come in. We don't come in to the front door. But I had 3 boys here growing up, 3 of my sons. So as they were growing up, they were getting bigger, and they were outgrowing their rooms, and they wanted to have a bigger space. So I had the basement finished, and I had it cut in half, and I had an apartment built down there. So my first son, he gets his license. So he can come into the garage that way. He comes into that metal door. He goes into his apartment. He has his own way in, private entrance in. So upstairs is the kitchen, and then to the left of that is the living room, and that's where I usually sit. And the 3 boys grow up. They all graduate college. My last boy, Johnny, he took that apartment. He went to college. He graduates college. He got a nice job, but then he wanted to come back home. So he's home when all this happened. So he comes back home for about a year, but then he got a nice job, so he left again. But he was home for this whole time. So, Marlene, in the living room, we have a sectional couch like most people do. Mm-hmm. And sitting on the couch, and every day around noontime, I do my noon prayers. So I have this time for myself. And I do like to meditate and pray. So that's why I meditate and pray in the afternoon. So I'm there and I'm meditating and praying there. And because it's an open format in this house, you could it's cathedral ceilings and it's open format, so you could hear a lot what's going on in the house. And that metal door downstairs, you kind of hear a little bit sometimes when somebody comes in. So this one day, beginning of the summer last year, I hear that metal door slam like it's never slammed before. And I'm thinking to myself, what is that? And I'm thinking to my son, Johnny, he's probably the only one. I don't think my wife could even slam the door that hard. And I'm thinking, why would Johnny slam the door? I mean, did he have a car accident? Did his girl break up with his girlfriend or something like that? So I get up. I go through the kitchen. I look down the stairs, but it's still dark down there because usually when somebody comes in, they put the lights on. Right. So I go into my office. And in the office, I have the security system. So I start looking through the cameras, and I start rolling back the cameras to see if anybody was on the property. Okay. I'm thinking that somebody maybe came in. I don't see anybody on the property. I roll back the camera. I look at the garage doors. None of them were open. There's another door that you walk in the garage on the back. That was never opened. And in the basement has glass windows, but there's bars on there. So if anybody was coming into that, I would have definitely heard that. All I heard was it slammed the door. So I know nobody came in, so I had to go down and investigate anyhow. So I start turning the lights on. I go down the steps. I start looking everywhere. I look underneath the steps. I look, behind the washer and dryer, things that you have in the basement. I have a workout equipment down there. Looking around there, I don't see anybody hiding over there. I go into my son's apartment. I look in his closet. I look under his bed. I look in the furnace room. I look.
And I imagine as you're going through there, you must be really thinking, I know I didn't imagine that.
Oh, I know. But the first thing that I felt when I went down the steps was I felt something hard to describe. I felt something sinister, ominous, menacing. The only word I can really describe it is evil. In this, suspicious, threatening feeling. Something you can't describe. I just felt an evil presence. I never had that in this house before. And I never thought there'd be any reason that I would feel weird like this, Okay. So I feel this thing. I try to shake it off. So I come upstairs again. I feel, like nobody was down there. Why am I feeling like this? So I come back up. I make a cup of coffee. Then I sit down. But then now I hear, Marlene, somebody crushing those steps, like something crushing those steps. Like I know when my wife walks, it's only 120 pounds. She can't, my son's about 170 pounds, but this thing felt like it was like a 300 or 400 pound thing crushing those steps very slowly, walking
And
up
these
the
are the
steps.
steps leading up to where you were at? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the basement. Yeah, from the basement up to the kitchen.
Okay. So you're like, okay, now it's coming up here?
Yeah, now it's, and I'm still thinking, because I'm a guy, I'm not thinking, I'm not even thinking, I didn't know what to think. So I get up again off the counter, and what is this now? And I go and I look, and there's nobody on the steps. But that was the weird part. I just forget about it, So I'm not going to be frightened about this, and so then now, like about an hour or so, my wife comes home. So she comes in the same way. She comes into the basement, and I hear her yelling my name down there, and I go over and what? And she goes, "What's wrong down here?" And I go, "Nothing." She goes, "Why am I have this feeling of something evil is down here?" And I was like, "Oh boy." Now I'm not sure what's going on, So I don't want to tell her about my suspicions because I don't want to frighten her,
Sure.
So I go back and we go back upstairs, and then she gets settled down and stuff, and then she makes a cup of coffee and she sits next to me. So Marlene, what I thought was nefarious behavior was actually this malevolent apparition using its methodology on me. It was telling me by using its methodology that it was present in this house, it was possessing this house, it was in control, and it wasn't a social visit, and it wasn't just passing through. And because I was very naive about all of this before I realized what was going on.
There was nothing taking place in your life. This was just any other day, like normal.
Yeah. For years have gone by. I'm just having a normal life up here.
Right. Okay.
So what happens is now, I didn't know it was using its methodology until it started using it on my wife. So then my wife sits down, and then I didn't say anything about what I thought, and she was like, she said, "Well, are you okay? Because you look weird." And I said, "No, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me." So we're sitting there, and then I start hearing this. She starts hearing, and I start hearing that thing walking up the steps again, very slowly, crushing those steps. And she says to me, "Is Johnny home?" And I say, "I don't think so." She said, "Well, who's coming up the steps?" She says, and I said, "I don't think anybody's coming up the steps." So she yells, "Johnny, is that you?" And she gets up and she walks through the kitchen. She looks down the steps and says, nobody's there. What was that? She said, and I was like, "I don't know what that was, Lily. I don't know how to, I don't want to say anything at this point. It's just started." So as we're there, things start to happen, and when we were sitting on the couch, like another hour or so later, we hear this really. I used to have a carpet from the hallway to all the bedrooms, but I took that out and I had a tile. So now you could hear something walking very heavy on those tiles and scratching along the wall all the way down, and then finally slamming one of the back bedroom doors. And then my wife again is like, "What's going on?" That's weird. Did you hear that? And I say, "Yeah, I heard that. Yeah." "Well, what do you think it is?" I said, "I don't know what it is, to be honest with you." So I kind of left it like that. I was hoping maybe this thing will go away, So things happen that. So now I kind of know this thing is here, and I felt it was here. Like you go to bed at night, Marlene, and you lock up the whole house, and you lock up the bedroom door, and you turn out the lights, and you feel safe, right? I mean, you think you do.
Yeah.
So, but the weirdest things were happening was, other than the walking down the hallway, which we could hear, and my wife would get up and look down the hallway, nothing there. What do you think that was? And I just did. The weirdest part was like I'm sitting there, I'm sleeping there, and then like 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like this heavy head right next to me, like what a Cape buffalo, a water buffalo would sound like when it breathes, and it would wake me up. And I didn't want to say anything to my wife, and I was kind of like almost sure that there was something wrong. There was some kind of malevolent creature in this house. But then it started, like I said, using its methodology on both me and my wife, because he was breathing heavier, so it would wake her up. So she would wake up in the middle of the night, and she would say, "What is that?"
How soon did you have that experience? After you had that thing where you heard the footsteps and the door slamming, did it give you like a little piece and then start up, or was this? Right, it would be
a couple of days of maybe a day and a half. It wasn't really like a long period of time.
Nothing, not really. No, it just okay.
Yeah. So now she's very upset about this, and I don't know what to do, and at this point. So it's the summertime. So we have a beach house. It's about 2 hours away down Long Beach Island. On the weekend, that's where we go down there. and my extended family comes down. We relax for the weekend and stuff. So we've been doing that on the weekend. But this one weekend, sometimes Johnny, who lives here with me, my son, he comes down sometimes with his girlfriend. But this time he doesn't. He's home for the weekend. So he calls down to the beach house and he gets my wife. He says to Lillian, are you and Dad down at the beach house? She goes, yeah. So who's in this house, he says to her. And now I'm realizing that this creature is using his methodology on Johnny now. He goes, when I'm downstairs, he says, I hear something really heavy walking around upstairs. And when I go up, and I think it's Dad or something, and slamming doors, and I think maybe Dad's upset about something, because I never do that. But I mean, he goes up to investigate, nobody's up here, and he says, but when I'm up here, I hear it downstairs. He goes, I hear it slamming my apartment door, and he has glass mirrored doors for his closet. He hears that rolling back and forth and smashing back and forth and back and forth. And my wife says to me, your father's going to have to talk to you when we get home, because I didn't want to scare him either. He's a man, he's a grown man. He's 26 years old. But I didn't see any point to. So I never told him. But when I came home, I had to talk to him about it. And he was like, whatever. He didn't know what to say. And my wife says to me, I think you're going to have to go over to the church and find a priest and do an exorcism on this house. Because there's something in here. We all know it now. And we got to get this creature out. And I was thinking to myself, well, go over to the church. I mean, we're parishioners of this church for over 20 years. We know the priest. Every spring we have like a garden party here. The priests come, the parishioners come. We have dinners here. The priests come for dinners. My wife has a faith group here. Now I'm going to go over there and start. They think us as a normal
right.
family.
You're thinking, I know. How do I explain this? Because yeah,
it's impossible. So I said to her, look, I don't think I could do that. I'm going to be known as the devil boy or something. By the time the parishioners start talking, I'll be the devil boy when I walk into that church. So I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe this thing will go away. I was always hoping it would just go away, So So she's too upset. She said, and then the next time we had that breathing in at night in the bedroom, she said, I'm going to go live into the beach house until you straighten this out. And I was like, okay, listen, I'll try to find a priest that does, I was really going to do this. I was really going to have it. But I'm not going to go to our church. I'll find somebody from another church that doesn't know us, and maybe we'll do that. But I think that this creature, I'm going to explain what this creature is, and a lot of it's unfathomable, but I mean, it can't be explained fully, but you're going to understand this creature and what these creatures are like, just from my experience. So it must have realized that was what my plans were, and that was what our plans were, to get this house exercised, Okay. So that's when this actual aberration happened. Now, you don't go on a break or anything, do you, Molly? You just continue?
No, don't worry about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, Molly, I never invited this creature here. I never had a seance. I never had a Ouija board. I never used tarot cards.
Right. All those typical things that are always things like, yay, you did that, so you invited it or whatever. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And I don't tell people ever do that. I don't suggest anybody does that, because, I mean, once you do that, you allow this creature to do you harm, I believe. You're permitting him to do its worst here,
You're giving permission. Yeah, that's what
and the only other thing, because I did some studying on this after I had this episode, the only other way it could happen is somebody put a curse on somebody else, or put a curse on me. That's one way that these things can get in. But everybody I know I liked. I mean,
exactly.
I do something. So the same thing. Now I'm sitting on that section of the sofa that I have in the living room, and I say my prayers there, and I meditate there, and because I'm a Catholic, I pray on the rosary.
Okay.
This will be so I say my rosaries, and I have a glass table to my right and a lamp on it, like most people probably do. And when I finish my rosaries, and I put my rosaries on that glass table, and suddenly to my right, between the glass table and the living room wall, the air starts to ripple, just like if you threw a rock through water and you see that ripple.
Right.
So it's to my right, so I think something wrong with my eyes. I mean, my eyes are fine. I don't need glasses, but maybe sometime for reading I could use them, but I don't normally use them. So I squint my eyes for a while, and I think there's something wrong with my eyes, but it was nothing, and I tried to clear them, but the eyes wasn't the problem. So the whole area of the living room, from that glass table to the wall, starts rippling, and the rippling turns into like a raging blue fire, like an inferno.
Wow.
Yeah, blue. That's the weirdest thing. I mean, I've never heard of anything like this before. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be unfathomable. I mean, it's unable to
Right,
explain,
yeah, exactly. Like if you,
understand fully. Yeah, but as an artist, I was able to memorize every aspect of this creature. So I knew if I was going to live through this, that I was going to draw it, because that's what I do. You know what I mean? And like I said, if you go to John-Eagan, EAGAN.com, you can see the cover of the book. That's exactly what was here, and and I drew that. So that's exactly what. So if you have a visual of it while we're talking about it.
well, no, I have the cover of the book, and I've been showing it on and off on a slide. So yeah, the viewers,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be able to see what you're describing.
Yeah, so now I'm looking at this blue flame. Now, I know we have fire, in this fourth dimension of ours, and it serves. It's like a miracle. It serves a purpose. It keeps us warm. We cook food with it. You can forge two different steels together, and that resulting steel is stronger than the two steels that are forged together. But I came to realize that this blue fire is in this particular dimension, which I believe is the fifth dimension. It is a miracle too that serves a purpose, and the purpose is chastisement, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So now I'm looking at a giant blue raging fire, and suddenly emerging through the wall of the blue fire, what I first thought in my mind looked like something like long pieces of coral. That's what it was coming in very slowly.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was coming into my living room. And the only way I could describe how this creature entered this house is like if I ask you, Marlene, have you ever gone to a board meeting? And all the subordinates, they get there early, and they rush in, and they sit there nervously, and they're shuffling their notes, and they're fixing their tie, and they're fixing their clothes. And then the CEO arrives, whenever he feels like it, on his own time, like he owns the room when he arrives. So he walks in slowly. He goes over to the superior seat. He starts when he feels like it. He owns the place. And that's how this creature entered through this raging fire. Like he owned, everything was on his time, So I got up from my chair because I started seeing, I didn't quite see the head yet. I just see these what I thought was coral. I don't know why, but I just thought they were long pieces of coral. That's what it looked like. So I get up and I step away from it, and I'm standing still in front of it, but probably 3 or 4 feet away from it. And I see that the head start to come through this blue raging fire right into my living room. So, like I said, this is the antithesis of any kind of an apparition I've ever heard about.
You must have been, how tall was this? Are we talking like full length or regular size or what? I imagine you must have been like, somebody wake me up, pinch me. What is this?
No, I know. But the thing was, this creature was so intelligent that it didn't back me into a corner, because from where it came in and where I was standing, I could run out through if I had to. I could run out. There's another archway that goes into the dining room, and there's sliding glass door there, and then in the kitchen, and there's sliding glass. There's 2 big sliding glass doors I can get out. But that's what I say when I say this thing was using his methodology on me. It was intelligent enough not to do that because it wanted to deliver a message, and it didn't want me running out of here like a crazy person. It didn't come in like that either. So I see all the horns are finally in, and the whole head is finally in there, and I see what it is now. When I'm looking at it, and the top of his head looks like a horseshoe, what a horseshoe crab looks like. That's what all these horns were coming at it, and when it finally emerges. Only like I was, like when you see on TV when they reenact these things, when a creature comes in through some kind of a dimension, there's like chairs flying around and lightning and screaming noises and animal noises and stuff like that. That's exactly. That's what I say. This is the antithesis of any kind of an apparition I've ever heard or read about on TV that you see on TV. And lightning flying around and stuff like that, and roaring sound. And this creature, like I said, was using its methodology on me by not trying to scare me out of here, because it didn't want to do that. So it just came in like that, very quietly, like it owned the place, and it knew if it came in like that, I would just run out of the house, and it would never have finished whatever it was supposed to do, So like I say, it's an intelligent, organized, powerful creature, and it had a message it wanted to deliver, and it didn't want me to run away. So when I was struck by the fact that it looked like whatever hierarchy demon you might, like whatever chain of command you might think that exists in hell, because of all these horns coming to the top of his head, and it was engulfed in this. So you would think like this thing was some kind of a powerful demon from the underworld.
Right.
And I did studies on this afterwards, and I'll try to explain it. There are rankings. I mean, there are hierarchy in another world, and according to people and priests who do exorcism, the spiritual practice of evicting demons, there are many times there are people who are possessed by many demons all at the same time, and the exorcist who expels them, they have to expel the lower ranking demons first. Okay. Long before the higher-ranking demons will leave, and they claim that sometimes it takes months and months of exorcism on a person to finally get that hierarchy demon to get out of it. So there is some kind of hierarchy level in hell. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Just like the angelic realms, that they have a hierarchy. Yes, I know what you're.
Yeah.
Exactly what I mean.
So this point, only his head emerged. So, and I said, like, it looked like a horseshoe crib. It was hard and bony, and all the horns were growing out of that part of it. And it didn't look like it could go any further than that, Marlene. I mean, it only looked like its head could come through. And I was happy about that, because that's why I tell people this is like a gift, because I thought it couldn't come all the way through, because if it did, I don't know what it would do to me. I mean, it looks like it was a powerful looking creature. It looked like it could take those horns and just ram you into the wall, and with those horns if it wanted to. Okay. And so many things struck me about this, and one of the things was it came in. It was in the midst of chastisement, right? In this blue flame, but it owned it. For him, this where it was, I guess it was hell. It was just for him. It was like he deserved this punishment. He had no qualms about it at all. Whatever happened between him and this creature and God back before time began, it seemed to be settled. And for him, he didn't have any problem with it. Like, the only way I could explain it, like if I was in prison for life and you came to visit me, and I didn't commit the crime, or you or anybody else came to visit me, the first thing I would say is like, I didn't do this. I don't belong here. Get me out of here. I'm innocent. This creature owned it. He just owned being in this raging blue flame. And there's so many things I want to explain to you about what. So when it looked at me, it was 100% hatred. It wasn't like 99.9% hatred. It was 100% hatred. And I try to tell people nowadays, if you have any hatred for your brother or sister, for your neighbor, for any different nationality, race, religion, or nationality, get it out of your heart before you leave here. It's in your spirit, because if it's in your heart, it's embedded in your soul. And when you pass, you're going to drift right into these creatures' nets, it's going to be rooted in your soul. You're not going to really have a chance. I mean, you're allowing these creatures to snare you, because like if you leave, the people who are able to forgive their brothers and sisters, no matter how many times they wronged them, or their neighbor, no matter how many times they wronged them, or any race, religion, or nationality, no matter how many times they wronged, they're going to a special place when they die. But if you got that hatred in your heart, you're not going the same direction they are. You're going to be drifting right into where these demons want you to drift. You already set the path for your direction, and they know how to manipulate you when you get there. Believe me. I mean, this hatred that people have, it only weighs you down. It's no good for your health. You got to get it out. The only way to fly is to take yourself lightly. You can't really bring that with you.
Absolutely not.
And then I wonder when I read the Bible and you hear that these bad angels were cast out of heaven, they were sent to hell. And I used to think, then why are they roaming the earth then? This creature never. But what I realized, this creature never left hell. It brought its hell with him. He was still in hell and here at the same time. He mastered this fifth dimension and had to make a portal for himself to invade our dimension, this fourth dimension at will. We humans, we don't have that power. We're never going to have that power. That's not even a technology we're ever going to, ever have. So like I said, it's powerful. And So it's looking at me straight in the eyes, and his eyes were black. It's full of hatred. And it was staring at me in a confrontational manner, you know. It didn't have any pupils. It just was black eyes, just pure black. And Marlene, most guys talk to each other. We talk to each other on like an angle, you know. Not this creature. It was totally confrontational, staring me straight in the eyes. And it began to move its mouth and speak. And I believe now that it was only showing me and telling me things that I could understand. Like I said, that I'm a skeptical person. When I read about great angels that were created before time and how powerful and beautiful they were, and the ones that broke away lost their beauty and became creatures, well, I'm not skeptical anymore, because this was definitely a creature. And it was an intelligent, powerful creature, because I don't think God created, like what you see on TV, wild animal things that are screaming and yelling and going nuts in your house. Like, right. I don't believe God created that. I think that's one of the ruse for us. So we'll think that's how they are, but they're not. They're very cunning. That's the thing, you know.
So you, John, what were you? I mean, how long did this take? Was it minutes, seconds? I imagine it must have felt like an eternity. But
well, it did feel like an eternity. The good thing for me was it was intelligent enough not to corner me. It was, like I said, it didn't come in like a crazy creature to scare me out of the house. It did want to tell me a few things, you know. So it was for whatever time it took. Well, I'll explain exactly what it did step by step, and whatever time it took for it to do that, it was the time it took. So I'm looking at it. Like I said, it felt like an eternity. It probably was a couple of minutes. It didn't say anything for a couple of minutes. Just was staring at me. I was able to study it because I'm an artist, and so I was able to draw it and put it on the cover of this book. So I was able to stand. I was trying to keep that part of my mind calm. You know, that part of my mind, that art part of my mind, where I could, like, if I was going to draw a picture of you, I could just sit there looking at you and study you, and I can go home and draw you, you know. So I was trying to keep that part, because I thought if I live through this, I'm going to definitely draw this and write about this, you know. Okay. So I see that it's going to say, it's starting to say something, and it says two words, and that was it said, "No more," like that, just no more. But I noticed, because it was so confrontational and it was looking me straight in the face, and I didn't know what to do. I had to look at it straight in the face too. But its mouth wasn't in sync with what I was hearing. Whatever language they speak, were, you know, I guess this is hell. I don't know. That's what I would imagine where it was. They don't speak English there, I guess, but it knew how for me to understand what it was saying. Because, you know, you usually look at somebody's mouth when they say, you know, and then, but I wasn't, and I was thinking to myself, no more, what does that mean? No more prayers? I'm thinking no more praying to save souls. I didn't ask him. So I just knew that he said no more, and I was like, okay, all right, no more, you know. So I'm still trying to study this creature. And I'm thinking, you know, like I said, if I survive this thing, I'm gonna draw this thing as much as I can. So, I was fixed mostly on this creature, but this raging blue fire also had my attention. The thing about this fire was, like I say, it's unfathomable. I couldn't hear it burning. I couldn't feel any heat coming off it. I couldn't smell it, like it was, you know, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't see what it was burning, like if it was wood or fuel or something like that. There was no crackling noises, you know. I couldn't hear wood or something burn, or whatever fuel might be burning it. So I was like looking at that, and because I was so curious about the fire, the creature spoke again and said, "Only your spirit can feel the effects of this fire." And that made like so much sense to me at that time. And I was thinking that it knew what I was kind of like thinking. And when it spoke, like I said earlier, the mouth didn't coincide with the words that I heard, because whatever, he was able to let me understand what he had to say to me, but in whatever language they speak. So when I tried to look into his mouth, because I wanted to see if it had teeth or something, but all I could see was there's darkness in there. I guess they don't eat anything there. But I mean, there's so much about this creature that, I mean, it was his face, like it's in the middle of this blue raging fire, but yet its face wasn't burnt. Like, that's something that was going through my mind. That's the thing that was a little bit strange to me too. That his face was just fine. Well, you would think it would be all burnt up, right? But when it said only my spirit will feel the effects of this fire, that made a lot of sense to me because I'm not a spirit yet. I'm still in this fourth dimension here. I'm not passing into that fifth dimension. And I guess when you do, then you're going to feel the effects of that fire. But the thing was, it didn't burn. It didn't look like it burned him, and he didn't seem to. Like I said, he owned it. Like he didn't seem to have a problem with it. That was
so. Let me ask you something, John. Did you feel? I mean, I know you were telling me that it's staring at you confrontationally. Did you feel any type of dread or anything? You know, like when you described that when you had gone downstairs, that you felt this. Like,
yeah, that was the whole time.
You had
that was there the whole time. Yeah.
Okay. So you were.
Yeah.
Okay. So you kind of at this point did you? I know, like again, you know, you're thinking, okay, that all of a sudden you're thinking, this is what I was feeling when I was going downstairs.
Yeah, the first time that it came here. Yeah, it was the same thing when it was present here. Okay. It's something that, like I say, it's impossible to describe, but you know it. But you know it when it happens to you, you know. Yes. And I came to understand, like, this, you know, that this is what people are going to have to. I mean, I still have more to say about this, but I mean, these creatures are going to be waiting for us. You know, they're masters of deception and treachery. They're ready to snare you in their nets. You know, they're building this trapdoor of deceit specifically designed for you and for you alone. And you're, like when we pass on, we're going to pass on. We're going to go into this strange environment, and we're not going to have any powers. And there's nobody going to be there to help us. We're going to be alone. You're going to be confronted by these things, like my brother was. And he was not a bad person, but and there's not going to be any support. You're not going to have a lawyer there or something like, you know, it's just you. And this totally foreign environment with creatures who are masters of it, you know. I mean, they know how to bewitch your spirit. They could seduce, entice, and beguile your soul. I mean, they're so smart and they're so intelligent. So once you know, like if they convince you to pass through that chasm there, that wall of fire, there's no coming back. You know what I mean? And like I said earlier, like people who are cunning enough to convince my nephews become atheists and that heroin was a good idea and to leave their compassion for people, to take that away from this creature is so intelligent, and it was created before time began. Yes. And it wasn't a baby. It didn't have a mommy and daddy to teach him anything. It didn't go to school. Right. It was created full on. You know what I mean? Intelligent, powerful. Before it decided, I guess after some period of time where they didn't want to listen to God anymore, they wanted to break out on their own. So, and that's what they...
John, let me ask you something, because I'm thinking, you're describing this, and I'm putting this, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I would have passed out. How did you handle this? Because I would have been like, do I pass out? No, I can't pass out. Do I run? Because what you're describing is mind-boggling.
I know, it didn't freeze up, but that's what I'm saying. This creature was so intelligent that it knew exactly what to do in this case to try to tell me a couple of things that I still have another thing to tell me that I want to get into. But I mean, it knew what to do. Like, it didn't back me into a corner. It knew I could get it. Like if I had to, I could just run out the other way. Right, you know what I mean? I wasn't backed into a corner like in a room where there's no doors. It was a giant archway. If I'm standing looking at it to my left, I could just run out there. That's the dining room, and then there's giant glass sliding doors there. I could run out that one, and in the kitchen is another giant. I could just go if I had to, and it knew that. And it kind of, I felt good because, Marlene, it only came up to its neck, and it didn't look like it could pass all the way. And that's why I tell people.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Like, this was like a gift in a way for me to understand this fifth dimension, you know. So, go ahead.
So when he's telling, like you said, he's saying, when he says that, no more, but I take it you're thinking no more I imagine you were
I was pretty sure about what it meant, but I didn't want to ask. Yeah, I didn't want to ask because I didn't want to start a fight with, you know.
Yeah,
I didn't want to have a confrontation. It was already I was like just like standing there in awe of it, and I kind of knew what it meant, like I knew I was praying for souls that nobody would pray for, and like I said earlier, like our religion tells us that the souls fall into hell like snowflakes from the sky, especially if there's no one to pray for them. That's why I took these individuals that were out at night, who were atheists. They were just like they just died in such a terrible state. Like my friend, like Chris, he died. He was an atheist. He used to make fun of God. And I was thinking, how is this guy ever going to get into heaven like this? Make fun of the Virgin Mary and God, and you think you're gonna walk into heaven? You don't. You hate him. So these souls I thought were lost, and then when I thought that, especially if there's no one to pray for them, they're really going to be lost. So that's what I did. So I prayed for these people I knew that had nobody would pray for them, and they were lost while they were here. And I think that's part of the reason why I worked that night, because I got to meet these people. And then when he said no more, it has to be the souls that are coming in their direction. They want them to come in their direction. They don't want anything blocking that or stopping it or interfering with it.
Yes.
So it's for them, it's like every soul that comes here is like, well, we're taught that they kind of like, hurt God, but, more souls that go to hell than that's what they seem like they want to do. I'm a little skeptical about a lot of things too, but now I'm not skeptical at all about that. I really believe that. And I believe that, like, my message is like I tell people, get this stuff out of your heart. I mean, these things, they're prepared to offer you interesting options. They have many wiles and deceptions, They're going to show you their empire built on hatred. I know they have their empire behind that wall of blue raging flame. And especially if hatred is rooted into your soul, they're going to show you how to use that hatred to alleviate all your pain, just as they do, So in order to be... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And I'm wondering, because I'm thinking, here you are. I keep thinking, was it maybe somebody that you were praying for in particular? Who was it that you got in the way of? You understand? Because I know you probably were thinking of all these people that you had met along the way that you had been praying for.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, was there one special soul that you like ran into?
Well, that one example. Yeah, that one example I told you, that I worked with a guy named Chris. He was only in his 40s. He was a bartender, in this one nightclub I worked. Okay. Yeah, well, him was one of them, but I knew so many people that way, but as atheists. But for him, he was like, that part of him I didn't like, and I told him, you don't ever talk to me like that again about God, about Jesus, about the Virgin Mary. And he said, okay, well, but he still did it with his other friends over there, you know what I mean? Right. But I knew he was so lost. How could a person hate God and Jesus and the Virgin Mary and walk into heaven after they die, And especially with these creatures are there, these creatures, like I said, they're going to show you how to use that hatred to alleviate all your pain, It's just, in order to be not outwitted is to be aware of their schemes, So that's what I try to help people with today. So to keep on their life, sort of go towards God, Don't be used by these creatures here, or by people who could convince you that God doesn't exist. Don't be used by these people. These are kind of like pawns for these demons here. And these creatures are so powerful. So it used every word it said. It wasn't a lot of words, but it used with fastidious care. It said something to me that I thought maybe was like a threat, because I wasn't, because I was just listening. I never said anything. I never took my eyes off it. I was trying so hard to memorize every inch of it, because I knew I was going to draw it, So it said, I am many, and many more wicked than I. So I thought, is this a threat to me? Does this mean more is coming? If like it's always no more, So is this one of many visits? I'm thinking, I'm not going to stop praying. I mean, I'm not going to stop praying for the souls that need, who don't want to. You don't want anybody to go. And that's that's the weirdest thing about you pass through that chasm. You're there for eternity. You can't even wrap your mind around something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, because no end date.
There's no end date. I mean, and I mean, we're supposed to love God, and but we're supposed to fear His power. I mean, He had the power to put that wall there. You know, you pass through it, you don't ever come back. That's the power you got to fear. You know, you just can't just willy nilly there's no God, there's no this, and make fun of God. You know, it's His power, His pure power, and you just never want to.
Let me ask him, John. Didn't this because one thing is what we think of as being evil or Satan or devils and demons, but when you see with your eyes, didn't you have like a reality shift moment? Like, huh? What?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the whole time it happened was a reality shift moment. Like I was stuck there, looking at it, but I didn't feel like I had to run. Like I said. I was engulfed in it, you know what I mean? And I was like mesmerized by it. And I knew, like I said, I tried to keep that art portion of my mind as clear and focused as possible so I could, if I did survive it. I didn't really think anything, like when I saw it only came through up to its neck and didn't really look like it could come through any further. I really felt good about that. I don't know if it was doing it or it was. If you do studies on this thing, it's only things should only happen like this if God permits it. So maybe God only permitted it to go that far. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, God might permit demons to do other things to people, but maybe for this particular thing, that's as far as this demon was allowed to go, and that's what I believe. So I thought when it said, "Go ahead."
No. This is fascinating because I'm thinking. Because sometimes, like you said, sometimes people dabble in occult stuff, or they conjure it, or they're just doing the wrong thing, and this happens, and it's like, oh. But here you are,
yeah.
You're not doing any of that. You're living an ordinary, everyday life. As a matter of fact, you pray the rosary. You're praying for people that have died, and they were lost even when they were alive, and
here
you get
they were lost even when they were alive,
and. Did it anywhere in your mind? And like I said, did you ever? I know you're thinking, okay, this is because it's like why? Like my first thing would have been like me, like what is it trying to say? They're trying to do, or like what you just described when he said that. Like is like what is? Is there a line behind you gonna come through this hole, or what is that?
Yeah, right. No, actually, no. I did try to, occasionally. I mean, I was trying to look between those flames a little bit, but there was nothing. I couldn't really see anything that was going on back there. But I know that was probably where its empire exists. I mean, because he didn't look burnt up.
So what do you think he was trying to do? Just scare you off, like have you shut down and say,
Well, he wanted me to stop praying for these souls. I know that much. He didn't want anybody to block these souls from coming in. And especially now is probably the time where a lot of souls are probably falling in his direction, and they're probably just rounding them up, like when they told me that I am many and more wicked, and I thought, like, okay, so does this mean that this is only the first of many visits? I know kind of like if I don't stop praying for souls, you get a more wicked, more hierarchy one that's going to come, and they could do more things, But I knew that he wasn't able to do anything. I thought for sure he wasn't able to do anything other than just give me these threats, So I didn't know what it meant by that for sure. So I didn't ask because I didn't want to know. But the one thing another thing that struck me was, like. I always thought, I feel like me, you think, like, where is heaven? Okay, and where is hell? Is it out there past the heavens? Is that where heaven is, way up there somewhere? Is hell in another world somewhere underneath or something like that? Is it past the universe? But after this creature appeared here with its hell, I realized that hell is just one step away. Like, it's right there. It's not far, far away. All you have to take is one small step and you could be right in there, So it's like, that was very striking to me.
Right, yeah. That you're talking, interdimensionally. Right. We always think of things as in linear and spatial, like in distance. So you think of it like far away, but I understand exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I always felt like it was so far away. I don't have to worry about this. But now I know it could be right there. Like when you die, you're going to be either, if you did the right thing, you're going to drift to a direction you're go towards God if you loved Him and you kept His commandments and you stayed the best you can. It's not like you can't ever God understands that we're sinners. He doesn't mind that, especially if you ask for forgiveness and He gives you. That's what we're supposed to do here. You're supposed to ask for forgiveness and you get and He has mercy on us, and that's what.
So let me ask you, what does He do? Just keep staring, trying to stare you down? Did He plop back out? Did He disappear? Or did He say anything?
Oh, He stayed like a statue almost staring at me, the whole time. He never really. Oh, but then I want to tell you what it did before it left. So the whole time it just stood there with his black eye. It didn't have pupils. It just was black. And I guess that's how they see it in hell, I imagine. So that's how it was staring at me. It never made any kind of facial expressions. It was like I could see in his eyes and face it was 100% hatred. Not even, like I said, 99.9. It was 100%. So... so I'm just staring there, and never like I said, it was like it owned the place. It was doing everything on his time. You know what I mean? That it was going to stay there for as long as he was going to stay there and deliver his message. So, like I said, I said my rosary, and I put my rosaries on the table. So to him, it's to his left because he's looking in that direction. So he looks down. The only time he took his eyes off me was to look down at my rosaries. So he looks down at my rosaries I placed on the table. Then he looks slowly back to me again. And then suddenly his face and his cheeks start to blow up, and I'm wondering now what, And then he looked down at my rosaries, and he spit a saliva right onto my rosaries.
Oh my.
Yeah, right on it. Like this was not like.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah, that was one of the things that was really weird to me, and it wasn't like this. This whole apparition I had was not like a ghostly transparency. It was a solid 3-dimensional. So when I saw that saliva spit out of his mouth, it came right out of his mouth, right onto my rosary stair. And then it looked back at me again. I guess it was trying to show me that it's discontent for anything that you use for praying. I guess that he wanted to make it sure that I knew that this was why it was here. So it just slowly, like he had no fear that I was going to do anything. Just he did that, and I couldn't do anything about it. And he looked at me again. And then he just, as he came in, like he owned the place, that's how he slowly backed out, just like that, just slowly backed out. And those horns just slowly backed out, and they dissipated into the fire. And then that blue wall of fire, I just want to tell you what happened, how I got him out of the house. But that blue wall of fire now starts to dissipate just the way it came in. And then that whole area there started to ripple again, just the way it started. And then it just all went away, just like it never happened. Just went away. And so now I'm thinking, the whole time I'm looking at my rosaries, and as I know I saw spit on it, and it was a lot of spit too. It wasn't a little bit.
Oh.
So I'm looking at it, and I start to poke it just to see if it's still there, the saliva, and I poke. Yeah. But it wasn't on. There was nothing there. Then I started picking them up really easy, little bit by little, and I pick it up, and I don't know. Like I say, it's unfathomable. So I think to myself, okay, it happened. It's probably still in this house. And then I'm thinking to myself, the Bible tells me, Jesus tells me, I could raise the dead, heal the sick, and expel demons in His name. So I'm thinking, I take Him on His word for everything. So the next morning, I go, because I'm Catholic, I go to church, I receive communion, I come back here. And my wife keeps this holy water in the kitchen, so I take the holy water. And I go into every single room, and I take the holy water, and I splash it onto the walls and everything around there, and I say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave this premises immediately. So I go into every room, in the kitchen, dining room, living room, down in the basement, everywhere, in the closets, everywhere, in every bedroom, and I even go into the attic. Just in case it was, and I find the last bedroom I go into, and I'm saying, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave this premises immediately. And I feel a swish, and the curtains and the blinds just swish, and I felt that evil presence just left, and I felt like yeah, it's gone. And this is like a year ago, Marlene, and I haven't even heard a bump in the night since then. So I was very pleased about that, believe me. And so was my wife.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Did you tell her? I imagine at some point, did you tell her what happened to you?
I couldn't. The weirdest thing about this, Marlene, was I guess that maybe I was a little bit in shock. Because when she would ask me about, I don't hear anything, do you know what happened? And when I tried to tell her about this experience, I couldn't get the words out. They would lock up in my throat. So I said to her, I'm going to draw what I saw, and I'm going to write every bit of this thing, right down to every single detail. And you're going to have to read it, because I'm trying to tell you what happened, but the words wouldn't come out. That was the weirdest thing. And it was... So I finally did it, and I finally drew everything. She said, "Was that what this thing looked like?" And I said, "Yeah." And then and as I did every page, she read every page, so she understood the whole story. But I could not say the words. That's the weird thing. Like the way I told you today, I couldn't say it for months and months after that. That was the weird
part. I imagine it's almost like if I talk about it, it's going to become more real. Like, or am I going to have talk about it, bring it back? Is it going to conjure it? Just because I start talking about, I'm telling you, I understand totally where you were coming from with that. I'd be like, I don't want to do anything. What if I talk about it and basically I
conjure it up again?
Yeah, it's like.
I know. I didn't think that. I just wanted to tell her, but I just couldn't. I've never experienced that before in my life either, where I wasn't able to tell the actual story until I finally, I guess I had to get every detail on paper, and I had to draw it out to every last detail I could remember before I was able to explain it. I wanted so badly to get that out. Like if you go to John-Eagan, EAGAN.com, that's where the book is. That's the cover of the book. That's what it looked like. It's a 350-page ebook. Press a few buttons, and it'll come right into your phone or your email account on your computer. But that's where you can get the book. But that was the only way I was able to do that, to explain what happened. But now I can. But it took me that long to finally get.
How long after when you did the blessing with the holy water through your house did you feel, or was it immediately that you felt, okay, this is gone? Or were you thinking, is this other shoe going to drop? Is it gone? And then all of a sudden, I'm going to hear a slam downstairs like you heard the first time.
I know. Well, you're paranoid about that, but when that evil presence, when I went into that last bedroom and I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave. And that swish felt like it went right out the window, because the blinds and the curtains just swished like that, and that presence, that evilness was gone, and that's what really cinched it for me. But you always think, but it said to me, "I am many and many more wicked than I." You always think, well, who knows? You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm saying over a year now. I haven't had a bump in that. Thank God for that. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I don't know if I can this, like what you're telling me. Okay, I can't. There's what was the catalyst that had this happen? From what you're describing, there wasn't. It was just it happened.
Yeah, just that it happened. The catalyst, I believe, was praying for those lost souls.
Sure.
And they didn't want that to happen. And even if now, if I ever. Even I would not even want, even if I didn't feel threatened. If I just see rippling in the air, I'm just leaving. I'm not going to stick around this time to see what's.
Yes, okay, no curiosity here, thanks.
Yeah, that was once in a lifetime. I hope to God, and it never happens again. But I will never stick around. If I see that, I'm just leaving. I'm not going to hang out to see whatever kind of threats it has in mind. Sure. Although I learned a lot about this, and I learned about this methodology, I was so naive about any of this, because I never, other than my brother, anybody I actually really believed that something like this happened to, that when the demons came for him, and then I was thinking, and he thought, well, was I going to go to hell? And I was thinking, after I had this apparition, I was thinking, he said these were small, like 6 small demons came for him. I'm thinking, probably these demons might take you to this creature that came here, one of these hierarchy creatures, and that's where they're going to start to beguile your soul and start to talk you into going, in their direction. I believe that. You might not be going to hell, but they're going to offer you interesting interesting options when these demons take you to these hierarchy demons. You know, they're going to, especially if you have hatred in your heart, because that's what they're built on. Their empire is built on hatred. You know, they're going to show you how to use that hatred to alleviate all your pain. That might be something you want, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah,
it's like a choice. Oh, it's definitely like a choice. We choose where we're going.
Right.
It's not like God sent you to hell.
Free will. We always have free will.
Yeah, we choose where we're gonna go. And if you're easily convinced, like my nephews are, that, you know, as atheists or heroin addicts, or, you know, you lost their compassion for people, you're easily convinced of, you know, this creature who's like, who knows how much more intelligent it is. It was created before time began. We only have 50 or 60 years to understand how to persuade people to do things. These things have timeless. You know what I mean? It's timeless.
And how about your wife, John? Did she ever have any experiences, maybe when you weren't in the house? I mean,
no, she's never had any. All the only things that she had was, and my son was when we were all together, we heard the walking, we heard the slamming of the doors, we heard the creature, you know, there's no way that the three people of us, or even two people, can have the same kind of hallucination at the same time. You could ask any psychiatrist in the world. There's no three people are going to hear the same exact thing at the same exact time. Even if we were on the drugs, or we had some kind of disease that makes us hallucinate, we're not going to have the exact same one. You know what I mean, at the same time. And so that's impossible. So that's why it's so. That's why it's a way. That's what they got out of it. And this thing wanted to tell me this, and that's what it did. And it did what it did, and it left. So, I mean, I got kicked out, I guess. I don't know. But, I mean, I didn't do it myself. I did it because Jesus said, I can do it in his name. I didn't do it in anybody. Yeah, I did it in his name.
Right. And see, and the thing is, I think, again, you know, what's frightening about it is that you always think that these things happen to people that are dabbling in what they shouldn't.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, here you go, but you weren't, and that's I think is a very frightening part about what you're describing.
It is frightening too, because none of us here do that. All of us we still actually go to church every Sunday. My whole family still does that. I mean, you know, and me and my wife still do that. It's not like we broke away from the church or broke away from God. We still always go, you know, because we're Catholics. We receive the host every single week, so that's always present in us. We're not looking for, like I said, we never had a seance. We never had any of that nonsense, you know. And like I said, I don't advise people ever try to do that, because this thing might, I hear things and I see things on TV where these demons can actually get you and put marks on you and throw you down the steps and stuff. And I mean, I think if you wanted to come in, then you get what you want. You know what I mean?
So how long was it between the time that you had that first experience that you heard the door bang downstairs, you know, that you went down there, and you finally did the blessing with the holy water? How long was that whole time period?
That was the whole summer, the whole last summer.
Oh my God, that must have been a long summer for you.
It was a long
must have been a
really
long summer.
It was a long summer for my wife, because she really took it the hardest. I was like, because I think, I don't know, am I imagining this thing? I'm denying it. Okay, I kind of know something's here. It's just probably going to, wear itself out and go away. You know, that's how I think, anyhow.
Right, and one of the things that I thought was really interesting was, like, when you went to your summer house, it didn't follow you. It was just always at that one house.
Stayed here. Yeah, stayed right here. And they wanted to use methodology on John. They wanted him to know, what's going on here too. That's the thing about this creature. That I didn't like. I always thought when you watch TV that they're crazy and they're wild and they make animal noises when they come through, and you know what I mean, lightning and shears flying around and like this crazy thing is. Yeah. This wasn't any crazy thing. It was a creature, but inside it was intelligent and cunning and smart and powerful. I mean, powerful enough to create a portal for itself. It was able to go from its dimension, which I say the fifth dimension or spiritual dimension, right into this dimension. It could make a portal for itself we will never be able to do that. No. I mean, the only way we're going to do that is when we die and we pass into that next dimension. But we can't do that.
Also, but the thing is that we always are under the assumption that we're safe from what you just described happening. We're always thinking, I can't go anywhere, but nothing can come through either. Yeah, that's kind of like how we kind of like comfort ourselves. Like, okay.
You hope. Yeah, you hope. I always thought that too. And like I said, I was always skeptical too. Like I said, when people told me, when you hear about people having these apparition, experiences, I think, I don't know, they're crazy or something like that. They're trying to do this for attention. Right. I didn't need to do this for attention. I was doing fine. I was retired from that one book, and my artwork is always doing well. And I would have never did this if this didn't actually happen. Why would I do this? Now a lot of people are just hearing it and thinking, I didn't want this.
Let me
I didn't want people
John,
to think.
Because you mentioned that after that happened, you started doing all this research. Have you ever run across anybody, obviously, either that had sightings of a similar demon or whatever it was, like what you saw, like with the blue flames and everything?
No, nothing like that. But I do know that my wife was talking to one of her friends, and one of her friends who was trying to be as chaste as she could possibly be as a young woman and not to have sexual relations with a man, and tried so hard. And then she did meet this man and who seduced her. And she said that next morning she saw two demons laughing at her. That's as far as I heard about anything like that. It's close to it. Yeah, so I don't know. What to believe,
But I was thinking, how sometimes people post on blogs or different discussion groups or whatever experiences that they had, and I was wondering, I wonder if this whatever appeared to you like has ever been cited, because I can imagine this is pretty particular that you would say, hey.
Yeah, this was something I never saw, because every picture I ever saw in a magazine or a book, first of all, the devils are red.
Right.
The fires are red. And never had these horns coming out of his forehead. You know what I mean? I know they take pictures of them of these big horns and stuff, but this was just so different from anything I've ever seen or heard of or read about. That's what it was. It probably was a beautiful creature one day, and now it's a creature. Probably when God created it, it had to be beautiful. He never would create anything that wasn't. And I'm sure the angels who stayed with him. But these things were so intelligent and cunning that they convinced a third of the angels to follow them. So there's a third of we don't know the number, but there's a third of all the angels that God created to begin with are now in hell. But these creatures like Satan and stuff were so smart and so cunning that they were able to convince them to follow them, to break away, or whatever happened between them and God, like. They didn't want to obey him anymore. They just wanted to break away on their own, and they're definitely on their own now. And anything they can get that they want, and if they could just get a piece of you, they're happy. That's what I
imagine this hasn't stopped you though from, praying for these souls or anything like that.
Oh, absolutely not. Because I know I did something there, and I know these people who they didn't want to. No matter how wicked they were when they were here, I know that nobody wants to go into hell for eternity. It's not. You can't even wrap your mind. You can't even wrap your mind around that.
No.
If you think about it, you can go crazy. If you think about eternity of chastisement, it could almost make you go crazy. Yeah. You can't come back. That's the thing that I tell people to fear. You got to fear that power of God. You can't make fun of them, and you can't, because we're all going to die and we're all going to see. Now, I'm sure now, you know what I mean? Like I said, I was a little skeptical about a lot of these things.
And I have to laugh, though, because when you said that thing about that you didn't want to go talk to your priest, you were like, I'm going to become devil boy. There's no good. I'm always going to be that guy.
Yeah, the devil boy, yeah. I know, because they're starting to learn about it now over there, and then, and there's a lot of people learning about it because it's been out there. The Coast to Coast has like 9 million listeners. I did that show for 2 hours, and there's 9 million more people. You know what I mean? I did so many of these shows now. But what are you going to do? That's. I felt like I have a message.
But you know what? I totally understand though what you were talking about, because this is the community that you live in. This is the church you were attending.
Yeah,
and that's different. That's totally different. Okay.
I know, it's totally different. And then my wife runs a lot of that stuff. I mean, that's why we didn't talk about that artwork I did. I mean, my wife runs the Adoration Chapel over here at the church, and in the Adoration Chapel, they put Jesus in the monstrance, and they put it in the lunar, and then when they put them out, they light candles. And when the candles burn all the way down, about 2 or 3 inches, you're supposed to throw them out. Mm-hmm. But my wife kept saving them. So I saw her in the basement one day, boxes of these candles that were 2 or 3 inches. I said to her, What are you saving all these little candles for? So what are you waiting for, a 45-minute blackout or something? What are we going to do with them? She goes, these candles are so special. They kept Jesus coming the whole time. I couldn't have the heart to throw them out. She goes, you're an artist. Why don't you do something with them? So I said, okay. Yeah, you're right. So I thought about it. I melted them all down. And I actually at John-Eagan, EAGAN.com, one of the pages on that website, you could see the actual bust of Jesus I made. It was so beautiful, because I have that ability to do that. I could sculpt into a clay or wax or a stone or marble, and I made this gorgeous bust of Jesus that the church wanted me to bring it over there, so I brought it over there, and then all the newspapers wanted to do an article on it, and all the magazines did. USA Today, which is one of the biggest publications in the world, when they called, my wife says to me, the big boys are on the phone for you now. And I go, who are the big boys? She goes, USA Today. Okay, that's the big boys. But they did a whole page of that. Of my bust of Jesus over there, and the Ripley's, believe it or not, called, and they wanted to buy it and put it in their museum, but I'm not selling it. So it's in there.
Let me ask something, John. Were you self-taught as far as your, the artist part of you, or did you just? Are you one of those people that, like you said, your eye connects well with your brain, and then you're able to translate it in through your hands?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's just like a little gift. A little part of my brain God gave me was the ability to do this art. I could paint, and I could draw, and I could sculpt. Wow. So that now is in Ripley's, believe it or not. Now it's in their 2018 edition of Ripley's, believe it or not. So I'm in that publication too. So that if you look at it at the even if you typed in Google John Eagan wax bust of Jesus, you're going to see some of the stuff the articles that were written about. You'll actually be able to see the bust of Jesus there. But it came out as life-size bust of Jesus. It came out so beautiful. I'm not selling it to Ripley's. I mean, I told them, you want to buy it? It's $1 million, okay? So they wasn't. They called back a few times. They didn't get anywhere near that. So
that's a pretty good convincer right there, huh?
I learned to never take the first offer. So I learned.
But and some of the
yeah. So that
now. And I'm thinking, have you been inspired to do any other sculptures or anything after you had this experience? I mean,
I certainly have, and the good thing is that now all the churches are sending me their used candles. So now I have so much used candles, that I will do something even bigger than like a life-size. Not sure of what just yet, but I do have enough candle wax to do something really fantastic with it, and I will do that. I'm just collecting as much as I want. I wanted to get at least 500 pounds of it, and I'm pretty close to that right now. Okay. So I will do something fantastic, I think, anyhow, with that. Because I don't usually work in wax, but I mean, it came out so great, and it's like it's the church candles. It's the candles that kept Jesus company. So I'm like, I don't know, they were there with Jesus, and they should look like Jesus, So that's why I did it that way.
That's the vision you had. That's the inspiration you had. So, well, there it is. But yeah, that's unusual. I had never. I mean, obviously, I've heard. You see candles sculpted certain ways, but usually you're thinking of it as something that's put out by a factory. But you actually sculpted it. That's incredible.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, just something to have that little ability. I could, I'm pretty good at writing. I'm pretty good at, I just having those two talents that just stuck with me my whole life long. So that's good. I'm happy about that. I mean, most of my term papers in college are in the research department for anybody who takes those courses that I took to learn how to write the right term paper for that class. Sure. I'm pretty happy about that.
That writing has become a lost art, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, I think so, right?
And have you had, and I guess I'm curious, have you had anybody reach out to you?
Plenty of people reach out to me through the website.
Okay.
Many do, yeah. And they have a lot of good ideas too. Like every detail I put in the book, it means something else to them. And then they ask me about it. They think, well, maybe it was this and maybe it was that, which is a nice thing, and I appreciate that a lot too. And that I get a lot of these, and every day I have like hundreds of emails that I go through. Some of them are like far out there, but but some of them are actually, yeah.
I guess that comes with the territory.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Have you had anybody come and ask you, hey, can you help me out? I think I've got one of these in my house. Can you come and do a blessing?
I know. I wouldn't probably go. I wouldn't want to.
I didn't say anything about you going. I'm just saying that they asked because there's.
Yeah, I would do that. I wouldn't go there where it was. No, I don't, because I'm afraid it's going to stick to me or something. You know what I mean? I bring another one. I could go through another. I couldn't do that again, to be honest with you.
I'm sure that there's people thinking, man, if he prayed and everything and he did a blessing on his house, man, maybe this is, because, there's people sometimes out there that deal with something like this for years.
Oh, I know they do. I mean, like I said, when I started studying these exorcisms and the priests and the people who do them, they said it takes some years sometimes to get these hierarchy demons out of the person or out of their house. I mean, that's weird. You know what I mean? That's pretty weird stuff. That I don't have the expertise for that. I do. I knew what Jesus told me in the Bible, and like I said, I take what Jesus says right to the bank. You know what I mean? So
right. But there's and there's a lot of people that have gotten they've painted themselves into a corner, metaphysically speaking, because they dabbled in stuff they shouldn't have, and then
you're right. Now they're in trouble. Yeah,
exactly. Now they're in trouble, and they're like, "How do I get out of this?" And it's like, yeah, guess what? It took you up on your invitation.
Yeah.
Good luck. So
yeah,
that's why
good luck.
They and they read a book like yours and they see, but I think you coming from the place that you were coming at, or your lifestyle and what kind of life you were leading spiritually makes all the difference in the world.
Oh, I think it makes all the difference in the world for sure. And I think this was designed specifically for me. And I was able to get rid of it too, the same way it came in. You know what I mean? Because of my faith.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what I thought.
In other words, you did not give a chance to get a foothold or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess so. But I was here for a while. But I mean, I guess so. And I just did exactly what Jesus said to do. I guess
that breathing thing that you talked about. Let me tell you, that's frightening. What a frightening description that is.
It is. That was one of the most frightening things too. That there's you feel helpless because there's nothing you don't know if there's anything you could do about it. And it sounds like a powerful creature because it sounds like a water buffalo, like it had that kind of a giant lungs or something. And it's just, and you're in your bed and it's dark and it's just the weirdest. It was one of the weirdest things I think I've ever experienced in my life. I've never had anything like that happen.
And John, let me ask you, when all this obviously, what were you thinking? If this doesn't work, I'm moving. What did you have a plan B, or what were you going to do?
Yeah, I did. No, my wife was going to the beach house, but I'm not leaving this house. I bought this house and I worked for it, and I'm not letting anything kick me out of here. Saying I'm going to stay here. So I wasn't. That wasn't anything in my mind to leave. I don't know. And could you sell a house like that? That's the thing. That would be if it still was here.
It's really funny because I know. I mean, before but I think certain states have passed certain laws.
But I can't reveal that.
Thing. It's like, I know that I think there's certain laws like, that if a murder's been committed or anybody's died, depends on the state, you have to say it. If it's publicized, like that it's haunted, I guess, like if you've had a bunch of paranormal groups come over, I think, again, you might, and in some, you have to disclose it. Others, you only have to say it if they ask you. And I think in others, it's like, it doesn't matter. But I'm thinking, once upon a time, you did have to worry about those things, and so it's like, hey, I'm selling my house. I'm gonna go and live at my.
Yeah, I know. But doesn't the thing come with you anyway? I mean, if it's still around.
That's why I asked you earlier. Was like, when obviously this thing wasn't going with you to when you were going to your other house. It was staying put.
Yeah, it was staying here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be expelled from here because it didn't come down to the beach house at all.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't his purpose. His purpose was to depict the time when I was alone to tell me what it needed to tell me, you know. And like I said, he used his methodology on all three of us over here.
And what about your son? What did you ever tell your son, or when you told your son? I mean, you like you said, he had heard these things going on, and you were kind of scared at the beginning of telling him.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell him, but then I did tell him after a while what my suspicions were, and I told him not to worry about it. I'm going to handle it. Don't worry about it. And I guess as his dad, he figured, I'll handle it.
Okay, that's going to take care of it. Like, all right,
so he was fine with that, but he moved out, though.
Oh, okay. All right, that's funny.
He seemed to be fine with it. But yeah, he got off with a really great job, so then he
right,
moved
but
out. So
the timing on this job is great.
Yeah, really. That's funny.
Yeah, because it's like that's a real gray area. You know, how do you, exactly like what you said, how do you combat something like this? It's like, what can I do?
I know. If I didn't have faith in Jesus, I don't know what I would do. To be honest with you, I just have no idea what I would have done if I didn't have Him. You know what I mean? I mean, I do spend hours with Him every single day, so I never thought He would fail me. You know, I mean, I was positive of that. I never thought He would, He would fail me when I needed Him. So it just and He didn't, and He just did it. You know, so that was how I felt.
And have you? Well, I was going to say writing any more books, but I was going to say, you know, because basically you base this book out of this one experience that you've had.
Yeah.
As far as, but are you planning any other books based on the research that you've done, maybe for people that find themselves in a similar situation?
That's true. I might do that. It's just, that's not a bad idea at all to do that. I did write a book called The Enlightenment a couple of years ago, and now I have this one, and I could really. I don't want any more experiences like that. So
yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. It's not, you know, not the first-hand experience thing. And the reason why I say this is, you know what, John, you're not the only person that I've talked to that thinks twice sometimes to going to their clergy because they're almost afraid of, like, if number one, like, am I gonna, is this gonna be something I did wrong and what I haven't, or are you gonna think I'm crazy, or you know?
Yeah. Well, I don't think if I brought a priest here and the thing used this methodology on the priest, he would know that there was something here. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be like silent when he was here because it happened every other day or so. Things were happening. He would have known too, or he would have felt that presence. And that would have been my last resort to have actual priest do an exorcism on that. Yeah, I didn't want to. You know, that would have been my last resort to keep peace in this house anyway, because my wife wasn't going to stay here.
Right, well,
she was going to live at the beach.
And that's what I'm saying. That I know there's people that sometimes find themselves in that scenario, where it's like, I want to go to my priest, but what if I get the funny looks, or what if they turn me down, or what if they like disbelieve me, like, oh yeah. Because sometimes you hear about that sometimes some parishes, they're great, but when you approach them with something like this, you know, if it's a house blessing, you're good. Like if you ask for just a regular house blessing, it's okay. Yeah. But when you start describing paranormal events or things like what you were experiencing, then you might get depending again who your priests are, you might get weird looks like, okay.
Yeah,
and some of them, and you know what? I don't blame them. There's a lot of priests that they get very scared of getting into this type of scenario with their parish, you know, the parishioners, because they feel they're out of their depth with this.
Oh, I would think so. That's why I had to find a really experienced priest who does exorcism and has some experience at it. You know, no matter what, that's what I finally had to find. You know, so for somebody to handle something like this.
Yes.
So, that would have been my last resort, to do that. But I wasn't leaving here. No, I wasn't going to leave this house, even though this thing was going to be.
You were like, no, this is my house.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I told you know what I think that's happened. You had ownership of the house. This was your house. This was where you lived.
Exactly. Yeah. And I did actually. Blessing here when I first bought this house, I did have one of the priests from the church bless the house, and that was nice, you know. But I guess it it wore off or something.
Yeah, like, oh, you weren't getting any special attention back then, but then you started doing stuff.
Yeah, that was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, and you know what I hear, but I guess you know what, John. A lot of Catholics. I'm going to use Catholics, but other denominations do it where you'll move into a new house and you get it blessed because people are excited. They're moving into a new house, and everything, but they don't do it with the intention of I'm clearing away evil presences or they're just doing it because they want to bless their house.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like a different mindset versus I've got things that are making these horrible noises in my house, and I've got something breathing in my ear at night, and then it changes where you're coming from. And absolutely, it's much different to ask your regular parish priest, I want my house blessed, versus, Father, can you come over because this, and this?
An exorcism, to do an exorcism.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's serious stuff, right?
Yeah, of course it is. And
that's serious.
And I understand, that they have a checklist of things that they go through before, and which is totally understandable. You have people with mental illnesses. You have a whole host of things that are not really paranormal or demonic or anything like that they have to go through before they even entertain the idea of an exorcism. But
I know.
But still, it's
go ahead. No, I was thinking that's right. Because they have to investigate it, and they have to make sure you're not crazy. You could have there's certain diseases where you have hallucinations.
Sure.
It could be anything like that. They'd have to they'd have to investigate that, and they'd have to be really an experienced priest that has done this before and he knows what he's doing. Yes. And then like if it's a really hierarchy demon, and it's like they say sometimes it takes months or years to get it out. And it's like to the person like. Right. That's like scary.
Because basically you are describing here at this point something that was in your house. It wasn't that that you had a possession of a person or any of the other, you were living, and I can imagine, let me tell you something, if I was a priest and I had a parishioner walk in and tell me what you just described, I'd be like, okay, Mr. Eagan, I think I'm going to have to call my bishop first.
Yeah, and the other thing is I know these people for so long. I don't look like they were just like a normal family here. Just regular people. That's all. And all of a sudden I come up with something like this.
But you know what? It's totally different when people. I imagine as a priest or anybody that works that when you have people approach you about regular troubles. When I mean regular troubles, I mean. Maybe if you need marriage counseling, or maybe something's going on with one of your kids, or stuff that people go through, that you go to your clergy for. But when somebody approaches you and starts describing what you did, that changes totally the whole
scenario.
spectrum. Yes.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yes. A lot of times people, what they need is they need advice, maybe they need counseling, whatever it is, maybe they just need somebody to talk to. Yeah.
There's so many things it could be, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
And John, and your son, did he ever come back and say, well, so Dad, did you take care of it? I mean...
No, I told him, after I was able to talk about it, I told him, after I wrote it, and my wife knew about it, and then I was able to get the words out, which was really strange for me not to be able to get words out of my throat like that. I guess that was part of the whole experience of this thing. And he seemed to be fine with it. He didn't have any problem with it at all. So that's good.
Okay.
I have 3 boys. I had to tell 3 boys about it, And then my one son was like, "Why you took this long to tell me?" And I was like, "I couldn't say the words. What do you want from me?"
Right. No, I'm thinking about the one that was there, like you said, was at the house and had his own experiences, and let's face it, he had his own first-hand experiences, so it was like he didn't need convincing. I'm sure it was.
Not at all.
That thing with the I mean, from what you're saying, he just heard, but did he ever have like that breathing or anything, or was this just for you? That was your
No, that he didn't get. That was only in my bedroom, and after a while it got louder. So my wife, it would wake up my wife, and I believe part of its methodology was to do that, was to not only disturb me with it, but he wanted my wife for some reason to hear it, to be disturbed, and I don't know, maybe he wanted her out. I don't know, because she was ready to go. She was ready to go live at the beach house instead of here.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, I guess so, right?
Yeah, that's the way.
But when we decided I was going to actually find a real exorcist, and we talked about that, and he must have overheard that. And that's when, right soon after that, is when the apparition happened. So he was, I guess he knew what he was going to do, and he just did it.
Yeah, it's stuff. Yeah, it's yeah, and I think sometimes people have a hard time thinking, man, I've got something unseen that's overhearing either what I'm thinking or what I'm saying. It's like, okay, let's a little bit of paranoia in there, but yeah.
Yeah, you would think so, but I mean, if it was present in the house, it knew what we were doing at all times, It knew how to get to me, it knew how to get to my wife, it knew how to get to Johnny. So it was like, it's like I say, unfathomable. You just can't explain these things fully or understand them fully. Right. You just have to take them at face value and then try to understand what we know. That's what I tried to do. What I learned from it, because I was so naive about these creatures, other than what I started to, what it showed me it could do. That's when I began to understand it.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you something. That's one lesson, and I could do without.
You can do without. Yeah,
I can do without that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, anyway, John, I wanted to thank you so much for spending this time with us tonight. I think this is, I'm telling you, I'm sure there's people who are going to sleep with the lights on tonight.
Well, not to worry.
God, it is. So anyway, and I know you've given out your website address, but as far as the book, they can go directly to your website and order it there?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to John-Eagan, EAGAN.com. That's where the ebook is. It's over 350 pages. Okay. You just press a few buttons and put your credit card in, and it's going to come right into your phone or to your computer. Okay. And it comes as a file. It comes with instructions. You open up the file, and then you could read it on your phone anywhere you go, or on your computer if you're just at home. It's a fantastic book, and if you give yourself the gift of understanding the unknown, it's just going to bring you to a point of enlightenment that you don't understand just now. But the 300 pages of this book will bring you, and hopefully get you into heaven. You know what I mean? If we're like some people are going in the wrong direction, I just hope this book turns them into the right direction. I really do.
Well, you know what? I think that when we go beyond the fright factor, which there's some very frightening circumstances that you described, I think it's very hopeful because you handled it. In other words, you hear some of these stories that sometimes people are tormented for years and the endings are pretty bad, and you handled it. So I think that's a very hopeful book when all is said and done.
And I put all my faith in Jesus, so I think that's how I handled it. You know what I mean? I think so many things, when Jesus was around, he said, your faith has healed you, or your faith has done this, or your faith has done that. That's real. That's real stuff.
Exactly. So it's not one of these things that's, you hear a lot of times where families kind of give up, even though they've had religious interventions. They still, for some reason, they can't escape the grip of something along what you described. So I think it's very hopeful.
It's absolutely very hopeful. Yeah, I think you're right, Marlene. I really do.
Well, John, again, thank you so much, and I want to wish you the best of luck on any of your projects, whether they're with the sculpting, with your artwork, or with any other books you want to produce. Because, absolutely, you're inspired.
Thanks, Molly. It was an honor to be with you.
No,
you were great. I've done thousands of interviews, but you were just right up there on the top, believe me.
Thank you so much, John. Take care, and happy holidays and happy New Year.
Oh, yeah, Merry Christmas. That's right.
Likewise, Merry Christmas. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, wow. So, guys, I know that you're all like, I don't know about you. I'm not kidding. I think I'm going to be one of those that's going to sleep with the lights on. I know some people will be going, me too, me too. That is, let me tell you, that is very, very scary. Okay? Whichever way you look at it, what he described, again, I'm sure everybody's either read, heard, or, some of these movies that are based on true stories, whatever, of people doing stupid stuff, going to the wrong place, you name it, and then before they, they've got, not a regular old haunting, but they're at the wrong end of a situation with a demonic force. Okay? And nobody wants that, but it's almost like whether you were stupid or just the wrong place at the wrong time. It's like almost like you brought it on yourself. It's like whatever. But when you hear John's story, where here he's living regular everyday life, and he's active in his church and in his community, and sounds like he's very, besides religious and spiritual, and this happens. It's a lot of times this is the flip side of things that people don't realize, that sometimes you get unwanted attention from evil entities, obviously because you're either asking for it or dabbling, or you're like saying like when people do the communications, Ouija board and other things, they don't know what they're doing. But a lot of times a lot of people don't talk about this, where you get that attention because of the opposite reason, where you're interfering or helping out people, or in this, for example, what he was doing, he was praying for souls of people that had passed on, that he knew that when they were alive, they were lost. And, if you want to think, if you're Catholic and you're thinking of purgatory or whatever, I mean, it doesn't have to be just a Catholic thing. It can be anything, that you're just praying for the soul of these people to find their way to heaven, or be whatever. That you get the attention as well. Doesn't have to be. And there's a lot of people that work as exorcists that have mentioned this. And I know one time I mentioned that I want to say maybe like a year ago, I reached out to a priest, Father Fail, F-E-Y-L. He's a well-known exorcist. I was hoping that I could interview him. He was kind enough to return my email, and basically what he told me was that during one of the last exorcisms he was performing, he had basically a health crisis. I mean, his hearing was gone. By this, he's not like ancient that he was, and he had a severe health crisis that we're all human beings in human bodies, and things happen to health-wise. Doesn't have to, but as you get older. But from what the feel I got, that was that there was some negative supernatural influence that led to what happened to him health-wise. And of course, he had participated in a lot of these exorcisms or interventions, whatever you want to call it, and that this is the way it works. Sometimes you get a bullseye on you, and and people might think, well, I'm not an exorcist, and by this I don't want anybody to think, man, I shouldn't pray for people that need help. Not necessarily. And I think it had the way he was able to dispel this probably had a lot to do with the kind of life he was leading. But yeah, I think that this is part and parcel sometimes of, and he made a very interesting point that when he had this experience, that he said, well, hell is not like some faraway place or underneath or whatever, things that we think of in our mind, that we try to place things linearly, like above, below, whatever, that this was right there, like it's right next to us. We just can't see it because, of course our senses don't allow us to see it. Otherwise we go crazy. But in other words, it's much closer than we think. And, you'll get a lot of people that work in the paranormal that, they feel that, portals, pathways between dimensions, that basically they overlap one on top of the other. And that's why you get the rips. You get people that theorize that even cryptid sightings are tied into rips or doorways and portals. That sometimes this is why these creatures are seen and then they disappear and nobody sees them and nobody captures them. Same thing sometimes with extraterrestrial visitations. Same thing, this is not like basically coming linear. It's stepping from one dimension into ours. Who knows? And there's a lot of mysteries there that I think, it's almost, I want to say maybe, and this is just my theory, maybe there's like an in-between dimension, like that you step between one dimension and the other, and this is like no man's land. In other words, if you travel there, anything is there, good, bad, and in between, and it's like, okay, when you have to get from here to over there, you have to go through this middle passage, like there's just like that, in that in-between place, anything and everything is there, could be there. Okay, and then, let's say, and of course our dimension, this is the one we exist in, whether it's a rip or these things have the ability to open and close a doorway at will, maybe certain things slip through. Or in this case, what he described, which is like, man, I was getting goosebumps when he's describing this thing. Maybe they, at certain times, they can punch a little hole, maybe to scare you, which that would have definitely had scared me plenty. God, I don't know what I would have done. To do that. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people think that these time slips where people have seen sometimes landscapes and things where basically it's not really time travel. They kind of like see either a house that was there or a battlefield or just the landscaping maybe that's 200 years old, that sometimes it's just like not time travel but a time slip, like it's an overlay between one dimension and the other, and then that it fades. There I've had people that will say, oh, I went down this road, I went to this house, I saw this, and they can never, ever, ever go back. And they'll swear, I know what I saw. And it's almost like a little, crossover between one dimension and the other, maybe, past, present, future, being like a record. It just depends where you drop the needle, in other words, circular instead of this way. And physics is finding a lot of things, again, that what we think of as reality is not what it is. And I think us being in this plane offers some protection, because I'll say it again, this is the plane that we hold dominion over. Okay? In other words, to exist on this plane, you need a body. That's how you operate in this plane. This is, in other words, we're meant to be here because we inhabit a body. And I think that whether you're a human spirit or anything else, you have trouble being here. And I think up to a certain point that offers us some type of protection, if you want to look at it that way. Unless you do the invite or open the door. Or with the scary part, which is what John described, whether somebody like, maybe they don't open all the door, but they peek in and they give you a good scare. Oh, I'm telling you, food for thought. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I'm going to put a link to John's website on the credits of the show. But otherwise, if you're one of the persons listening to the podcast, I'm sure that you can, you heard him give out his website address. And I've got a lot of interesting guests coming up, fascinating guests, believe it or not, pretty soon. I'm already going to start working on season 6 of Stories of the Supernatural. And I always remind everybody, if you have any eerie experiences, again, it doesn't have to be a ghost, it could be anything. I would love to hear from you. You can go to miamighostchronicles.com. There's a Submit Your Story tab. You can send an email to me at marlene@miamighostchronicles.com. You can also go to storiesofthesupernatural.info. Again, I have links there if you want to see the videos on YouTube, if you want to download the MP3 files for the shows, or if you want a direct link to different podcast platforms that host the podcast, which is such as iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher. I have links that will take you directly to the files for the show. If I have a lot of my audience that's exactly what they do. They download the MP3 files and then they can listen to them while they're doing their thing. I know that's a lot easier sometimes, obviously, than being able to look at the videos. So I'm always welcoming your stories, or if you have suggestions for guests. But I've got a lineup of people already ready to go that are going to be appearing on the show. And like I said, I always look for, obviously, people that are established in the paranormal field, because they always bring something to the table, whether it's a lot of years of experience, but I'm always out there looking for new faces, people that are coming in, whether they've written a book. Also, I'm going to be going out into the field again and maybe bringing some more, field investigations. As far as podcasts, sometimes that's a little bit more difficult to translate into podcast platforms, because it's not the same as when you interview somebody, but at the very least I'll be able to release the video of the investigations up to a certain point. I've got some things coming up in that direction, but overall, a lot of interesting stuff going on in Stories of the Supernatural. So once more, thank you so much for coming back every week. I hope to see you guys back again and again. And I don't mind repeating myself by saying that you are all wonderful. Take care. And even though you might be hearing this a little bit late because of the release date of the show, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, whatever. Many blessings and good luck to you all. Take care.